Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And I'm sorry for the lack of a live stream over the weekend. We had some technical difficulties, but we will be doing a Rated R Riffs at some point this week for the movie Cuck, and it will be me, Vash, Cham, and possibly Purity Sin. We're going to see how that works out. So, just for my scheduling thing. So we'll see how that goes, but to get to what we're going to talk about today is the new trailer for the film Fantasy Island, which is based off of the old television show from the late 70s and early 80s. Now, the television show, I believe it aired for, if I remember correctly, 5 seasons. It starred Ricardo Montalban as kind of the host of this island. And he, basically the premise of the show was kind of like a flavor of the week thing where they'd have different actors come in. The regulars would be Montalban and a dwarf that would be, that was with him as well. I can't remember the dwarf's name for whatever reason. He was also in a James Bond movie, if I remember right. But basically, the idea is that these people would vacation to this island, and this island would make their fantasies come true, and you would learn things about these people, and they would learn things about themselves. And there was some tension, some action, and stuff, and everything like mixed into it. But ultimately, it was kind of like you learned a lesson type of thing, or like people grew as individuals from coming to the island. That's kind of the idea. It wasn't meant to be like a horror themed thing. But now we're seeing a film adaptation that's being done by Blumhouse, and Blumhouse has been putting out a lot of material lately on the horror front. We know we know that there's a remake of Black Christmas that is in the works for them. We know that they have 2 sequels to the Halloween movie they made last year, which are supposed to be coming out concurrently in, I believe, 2020 and 2021. And this is another thing to add to that, in addition to a few other ones that have popped up here and there. But this is interesting, but I don't know if I'm necessarily attracted to the idea. And we'll go through the trailer. So we start off. There's a blonde woman who I don't know the actress that plays her, but the big ones in the movie are really Maggie Q, who a lot of people would probably remember, I believe, from it was either ER or Grey's Anatomy. I think it was Grey's Anatomy, and then also Michael Pena, who plays the lead character that Ricardo Montalban played in the television series, the purveyor of the island. And they basically go through this whole little monologue where it's like, okay, they find Fantasy Island and they go there, and the whole thing is they mentioned very early in the film that there's no cell phone reception, which comes in probably later on in the story, but it is something important to note. So they go through this whole thing where they're on this island, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna find, you get to experience your fantasies here," and they assume it's gonna be something like, okay, they're gonna meet a hologram or something like that. It's gonna be something cheesy, but it's gonna be something at least fun. And they go into these individual little things which are kind of weird. So the blonde woman, for instance, her fantasy is to torture her childhood bully or somebody that she doesn't like, and so she goes in this room, and they have basically this little panel in front of her, and then there's an enclosed room in front of her as well, with a woman who is tied there and bound and gagged to a chair. And she looks like the woman that she knows, but she doesn't think it's the same person, obviously, because she hasn't put 2 and 2 together yet. But eventually she realizes, oh, that's the same woman, and she starts screaming, "This is not what I meant," because the idea is that they're going to kill her. And this is when we go into the horror portion of this, because this gets very weird. Because you go into this, you see some of the other fantasies. There's a male character in this as well, who it looks like he's doing like military tactical stuff. He has an assault rifle, a few other things. You also see Maggie Q, who apparently she wants to relive something with a child who is dead, and she sees the child and says, "You brought her back to life." So some weird things like that. But then we start going into these more serious horror elements where they literally state the island is trying to kill us. and you're taking the idea of Fantasy Island as kind of this light-hearted type of character study piece that kind of like a flavor of the week type thing with the show, and you're moving it into this kind of this fantasy-driven horror thing. It's almost like Jurassic Park in a way. When you go into Jurassic Park, it's like, oh, look at all these fantastical things. Look at the dinosaurs. And then by the end of the movie, it all goes to shit, and people start getting eaten and murdered. It feels kind of like that, where it's almost like something like, oh, it's something so fantastical, but it's an attraction. We want you to come and see it, and then it all goes south. And that's really what this trailer feels like. I don't think they put too much in the trailer. I think they put more than enough in here to kind of get people interested. For anybody that was kind of interested in this, I don't think this is going to attract fans of the show necessarily. Because again, I think it's a very different animal in the way that it's constructed. But it is an interesting change of pace. Now, I did mention before when I did my trailer breakdown for the FX miniseries, A Christmas Carol, that I liked the fact that they were going with a dark tone with it because it was something different. But with that situation, A Christmas Carol is a ghost story, so it makes sense where you could transition it over into horror. Fantasy Island was never really meant to be well, I shouldn't say meant to be, but you kind of twist it a little too much when you make it into a horror story. And I kind of think that's a little bit of a problem with this, is that I feel like you're just using a property for the sake of using a property. Again, kind of like the Black Christmas thing, where Black Christmas, you don't need a remake for Black Christmas. There's no reason for it. And I think Blumhouse is putting out good material. Like I said, the Halloween movie that came out last year was pretty good. They're doing 2 sequels to it. One is, I believe they're filming the first one right now, and then they'll immediately film the next one. But they've put out some good stuff, but at the same time, they're also putting stuff out like this Black Christmas thing that doesn't look very good. They're putting out, and it doesn't necessarily look very good. And then, now you're going into this. And I'm curious how many more Blumhouse productions are going to be coming out. Because, again, this is a relatively small studio. And I'm aware that these productions are relatively low budget. You can probably do a good amount of them as long as you don't have overlapping actors and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of movies that have been announced coming out of Blumhouse. And majority of them are horror. And a majority of them are remakes or delayed sequels or things like that, which is interesting in kind of a bad way, because they're not putting out a whole lot of original material. If you're looking at the high profile stuff, at least the stuff that we've seen. Now, again, I just, the tonal shift is weird for me for this, to just to go from what the original show was with Ricardo Montalban to this new iteration of it. But I haven't seen the movie. It's gotten me interested. That's what the trailer is meant to do. It's meant to get you interested. It has me a little bit interested in how this is going to turn out. I don't think it gave away too much. I think it gave away enough of what it needed to do. But I think that you could screw that up with a second trailer. But we'll wait until that comes out. If that has enough new information in it, or it has enough different stuff in it, I might do a breakdown of that as well. But I'm curious what you think. As usual, I will leave the trailer in the description below if you would like to watch it. But what do you think? Were you a fan of the original show? Do you like this kind of take on the idea? Do you not even know about the original show, and you're just you want to go into this fresh? Do you not care? Put your thoughts in the comments. Again, I'd like to know what you're thinking. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?